All right, Urban Home Contents, take one on Evan Kingston. All right, how you doing today?
Good.
Cool. So before we got everything rolling and whatnot, you said you have a job and it provides for a family. Yes?
True.
Okay.
Most months.
Most months.
Close.
But you're also a writer.
Correct.
Do you identify more as a writer or as I have a full-time job and I provide for my family?
Oh, so my full-time job is as like a retail service specialist. I'd say I identify as like a working person the same amount as I identify as a writer. I'm glad to be a person working in our society and providing for my family. I don't necessarily identify as a retail service specialist in particular, so I definitely feel like more of a writer than that and a worker in general.
So a writer, is writing part of your identity as much as working is?
Yes, I'd say so, yeah.
Okay. Do you want writing to be...
I don't feel like I could write full time.
Why not?
Like, I guess even when I was when I was in grad school, I went down to part-time in groceries and was working on my first novel, which felt like full-time. And it was maybe 5 hours a day is all I could manage before it was just sort of garbage. And I know there's writers who are out there pumping out 2 thriller novels a year, but that's not the sort of writing I want to do. And so when it gets to a part that feels boring to me or feels like it's drudge work to me, I put it down and come back the next day when I have some sort of new inspiration, new perspective.
What is the writing that you want to do?
Oh, I want it to be...
Or what is the writing that you are doing?
In general or specific? I guess, so I want it to be...
Well, you said thriller novels, but that's
sure.
not the writing I want to do. And so then, inversely, I'm curious, what is the writing
sure.
that you want to do?
I guess I want there to be thrilling stuff in it.
Yeah.
But I want it to be funny too, and I want it to be sad and joyous. I want it to be complicated.
Just the whole spectrum.
And so I think I love genre stuff, but I don't like stuff that's usually, even as a reader, I'm not drawn to stuff that's straight genre. Yeah. And as a writer, it definitely doesn't excite me to just try to fulfill the genre things and that's all. I think you can write fast like that, sort of by the numbers, but I want to complicate it and do my own thing and have my own voice. And it's weird with that. It's for some reason it takes longer to do that, I think.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, to get all those things, you want it to be thrilling, sad, and funny. What's a good example of something that was all of those things?
To me, like a novel.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, the novel 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. He's a Canadian-Caribbean dude.
Canadian? Oh, there's a lot of people that Caribbean that Canada.
But it's, me, I'm no dog lover, but it's like a story about these Greek gods make a bet about whether giving dogs human consciousness would make them better or just lead to the sort of suffering that all humans go through. So he gives these 15 dogs consciousness, and I initially was like, I'm not going to be that interested in this. I don't love dogs that much. But it was just the adventures they go on. It was heartbreaking, funny, good, witty language stuff. It did it, the whole world, the whole of human experience. I guess that's what I want. I don't want...
You might just be you might have the one, To Kill a Mockingbird, and then not make another for 30, 40 years.
It's a lot of pressure. You put it. No, I feel like I definitely don't feel like I have the one, because I've done 2, 3-ish novels now, and each one feels, at the start, it feels like it's the one. It's everything. This is going to solve all of my problems and all the world's problems if people will just read this book. But then as you go through, I think there's definitely a point where this is not the one, and this is going in the garbage.
Oh, no.
keep working up and down, and eventually it's not the one, but it's a piece of something, I guess.
It's something.
So, and I feel like I don't know, I guess sometimes I feel like I keep getting better, and maybe one day that perfect thing is out there, but other times I'm worried I'm not getting better, I'm treading water.
Okay. So what got you into writing?
I think reading, for sure. And as a kid, comic books, but then also chapter books and pretty quick fantasy novels I got really into. But it started with comic books, I think.
And at what point did you turn the corner and say, I'm going to do this too? You know?
Definitely even back to elementary school, I was always drawing my own superheroes. And I don't know if you remember, like, Marvel had like a, what was it called? The Encyclopedia of the Marvel Universe, or the Marvel Universe Handbook. And it was like these sheets you could buy and put them in a little 3-wing binder. And it was like everybody in like a straight on shot, so you could see how big their muscles were compared to each other. And then like a profile, and then all their like origin, their stats and everything. And so I never really made that many of my own comics, but I made like a dozen of these guys and was going to fill out my universe and then start making all the comics. And so that really felt like the start of it. And then that transferred into like Dungeons and Dragons and making the adventures for that. And then I did a little creative writing in high school, but I don't know if I really thought it would be a career. Like, it's always been a part of my life from even those young ages, but as far as wasting so much time on it, so much of my life.
But my thing is, it's like,
I'm just being self-deprecating. Yeah.
The second that you're telling me about this, I'm like, well, I want to know what these guys look like and what were their backgrounds.
Sure,
story,
yeah.
You know? So, at what point do you feel that something is a waste of time and something is...
I guess it doesn't feel like a waste of time to me, because even when I'm like down on my prospects and I'm feeling like, I'm, just got a rejection letter in this short story and no one's going to want to look at this novel, why am I still doing this? If I go a few days without doing it, I start to feel cranky and crazy. So there's definitely something similar to like exercising. If I go too long without any sort of physical activity, I start to feel cranky. So it does something for me, my inner life or my mind or something that is necessary. So it's definitely not a waste.
Okay.
But like when did I decide to like study it seriously? Was at some point in college, and it was sort of like my plan B, really, really impractical plan B. And I thought I was going to have like a practical, I was looking for plan A, like that, like I'm going to be a scientist or I'll be an economist. And I tried a bunch of different other, not even majors, but just like a few classes the first couple of years, and nothing was as exciting to me as either reading novels or writing. Yeah. Okay. So it was like every class I took was like, biology, this is sort of interesting, but I could also imagine a novel about a biologist that has all this biology stuff and more. It felt like the world of literature, it like was bigger than everything. It had everything in it, and then more
opportunity, or your imagination could travel further. Well, being an economist, I mean, that's you're in a box box. Like, I was talking to a friend about that last night, the difference between financial people and economists. Like, that sounds, I mean, it's like seeing The Matrix and then like you have to deal with this for the rest of your life. I don't want to know why the unemployment is low and people are still sad. Like, I don't want to know that. I'd rather not know. Anyways, and so in doing that, was there ever a fear like, well, this may not be able to supply food for a family? Like, I can't be a writer. That won't make any money.
Yeah, for sure. And like pretty early on in learning about the writing worlds, and professors are pretty good about that. especially once I got to the MFA, there was a class about the business of being a writer.
Oh, yours was the MFA?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yep.
It's not bad. Well, I mean, she's talking to Max about BFA in undergrad.
Okay.
And so, like, how that it's a bachelor, so it is undergrad, but how the FA can sometimes drive people mad, like just drive them crazy, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. And so with the FA, my undergrad degree was just a general English degree, BA, and then with the fine arts on the end, I didn't enter into that thinking it was like a path to riches. And even once I took a few classes and heard from professors and other people in the program and recent alums, like, it wasn't a path to a stable job even. So around that time, I started to feel like, okay, I'm not, even my like fantasies from that time that haven't borne out of me being like a semi-famous indie author.
Yeah.
Like even those dreams, like I was going to be a professor part-time during it, or stay. I often felt like, I could stay in the grocery biz, and if I can do the writing on the side, I could live, with the sort of drudgery of this other stuff.
Yeah.
But like, there's part of the reason I think it's hard to even imagine being a full-time, like, punch in, punch out writer is there's only like a handful of writers in the nation and the world that are able to support themselves solely on writing. Yeah. Even someone who's winning like Pulitzer Prizes and stuff, most of them are going to be professors, full-time professors for a lot of the week, or will find other ways to have a job that they can still find like enough time to write every day. But there's very few people supporting themselves outright.
It's almost. Do you think the odds would be slimmer for somebody to become one of those writers that can support themselves full time than it would be for somebody to become a professional basketball player? Or is it the same?
I think it's pretty close because there's, how many people are on every basketball team, and how many basketball teams are there? And then you can be professional in Europe too. But then there's other ways to be like a professional writer. I know a lot of people who get like an indie book or a low, like a story collection with a major press that does sort of good, and then end up writing for television right now because that's a big growing industry, and you can make a living at that.
You can make a living writing for television. I can see that. And like a lot of successful people like Mindy Kaling and Donald Glover.
Yeah.
Then transcend the camera.
But as far as like just prose, it's hard. And especially just because it takes so long to, even if you have a book that does well, how well does it have to do if you're only able to get one out every 3 years?
Damn. How much does a book need to make for somebody to feel socially,
I don't know.
financially secure? Like,
how much, so, dreaming of this book that I have with the press now, and they're thinking about it for the second round, like, how much would it need to sell for me to have the guts to quit my job and double down on the next one? It would have to be a lot. Only getting a percentage, and then like, so enough money to live, but then like also, I guess you probably have to deal with this like health insurance. That's just the biggest reason I have this job and have stuck with a job all these years, is just to keep health insurance.
Well, and you got a wife and kids. So that's huge. If it was just you, no wife or kid, would you be like, I don't need this health insurance, I'm good?
5 years ago, probably, yeah. But then I had diverticulitis 2 years ago, and I would have been. I'm old now. Yeah, you're old too. You probably take better care of yourself than me. But
I try, but I don't have health insurance yet. So let's figure that out this year. Get some MNsure going.
Yeah. Can we make a plea directly to the Patreon people? Get Toussaint some health insurance. Diverticulitis is in the family.
It does?
No.
Oh, God, I hope.
I was the only one.
That sounds like painful as hell. But like MNsure, they got that window that's like 2 weeks. Oh, you didn't sign up? Okay, bye.
Yeah.
And it's, where'd it go? No, it's like being stuck in time, like the portal just like, health insurance, I totally understand. I get it. I got it. But you still write. Is there any point where you're like, I could be making a lot more money if I didn't do any of this writing stuff, you know? But then again, you say it's because...
Yeah, I think I would be a totally different person. I would have to turn part of myself off.
Yeah.
Which is never good to do.
No.
And I think it will, I maybe could last a few years, but it would blow up in some other way.
In my theory, like a lot of artists, when they shut that part of themselves down, it's not shutting it down. It's for me, it's repressing something, and then it heightens other things.
Sure.
Which, I mean, I've noticed. I know some artists, I know some musicians that have been making an album for almost 8 years now. I know some musicians that practice maybe 4 days a week, never played a show. Some of them are happy, and some of them, they've repressed. They kind of just do the work and then like commit to nothing being released, and so it eats at them a little bit, like, you know, and it's hard to watch because it's like, so when's that album coming out, man? You don't want to press that button, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, you repress it and then bad things happen.
And earlier when I said that, if I, like, part of me is happy just doing it, like exercising that muscle and whatever I have to get out of me. Yeah. But definitely an essential part of the equation is having at least some other person reading it, or else it's, why don't I just write in a fucking diary?
Yeah. Just get a live journal.
Yeah.
Well, not even a live journal. Just get a journal. Like, get a blog that only you have the code to.
Yeah.
There's no...
So, I mean, that's a part of it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely, the more honest I am with myself, that's definitely a part of it when I'm sitting down doing the work, too, is I'm imagining someone enjoying it, laughing, crying, whatever.
Or empathizing with you,
yeah.
No, that's huge. What spurred the you to write about a sitcom murder mystery in a series of short stories? Like, what different books? Like, what spurred that?
I was really interested in fan fiction, and that was the sort of genesis of it. And then as I think I was just thinking about fan fiction a lot. I had a different short story about fan fiction in a different way. And I like metafictional stuff, partly because I like genre stuff, but I like those constraints because I like to fight against them. So it felt like a way to, so having the fan fiction thing in there, I could talk about the genre of fan fiction, but also make fun of it because it's ripe for fun making.
It's simple. Yeah.
But then I also, I guess, thought of other genres I wanted to make fun of. And in college, for some reason, every day I watched Seventh Heaven reruns. It was the right time of day in the dorm room, and I would, and so that was the basis for the show, because I felt like I knew a lot about Seventh Heaven.
Never knew that. Okay, go on.
And it was a way to work in. So I wanted, as far as the mystery element, I wanted it to be believable that the main character Alex was closeted for some reason. And I came up with the idea in the early 2000s, and then by the time I developed it and started really working on it, it was the early 2010s, I think, and a lot had changed in the national consciousness, thankfully, about LGBT issues. And so it didn't seem as believable. I'm sure there's still people who are closeted because of their careers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem, so that's partly why I set it in this sort of early 2000s era, Seventh Heaven. Like, it was more believable and you could sympathize with her more. And then I thought it was just a cool idea for a project, and there were different layers of stuff going on, so I felt like there were different things rubbing up against each other, and if I got stuck, I could, look at it at a different level and work on it that way a bit. And then it just started, after a while, it became at different levels of the process, at different times of the process, different things sustained me in it. Mm-hmm. And towards the end, it was about like keeping a secret, and I was really, I had just had a secret I'd kept for better or worse, and what's hard about that, and so that was. After a while, it felt like it wasn't about the TV show anymore. It was about what that means.
Well, I'm in the third book still after owning it for over 3 years, but I'm gonna get to the end at some point. Damn it!
You still don't know who done it?
No, I still don't know who done it. No, but I mean, as I told you, I always guessed that it was Coop. I always thought it was Coop because of the way you described basically like his like the size of his wrists. Like I'm just like, that guy killed somebody. That guy easily killed somebody. There's no way he didn't kill somebody. But the description that you gave into like just his body alone led me to believe that. And I don't know if that was your intent, but gosh darn it, I definitely played into that. Moving forward, what is your process when writing? Like, what do you usually? It muses to you while you're restocking something in the grocery store, or.
So I'll usually start with an idea that I feel like is something I could describe to people, so like it has a hook of some sort.
Yeah.
But also has some sort of like intellectual hook for me. So like the project I was just talking about, like about secrets and that. And I'll have a few different ideas. I have a bunch of different ideas going on at a time, and then once it's built up enough, like I've thought about it, both like the plot questions of it and then the what is it really about that I'd be trying to work out in it. Then I'll get started and do a really, really rough draft. People in the writing world call it a shitty first draft. And so I do it by hand, and I don't do any editing. Just every day, or like 5 days a week or so, I'll try to give an hour to or more if I can, handwriting super fast. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. Yeah. And even if it's something like, oh no, wait, disregard yesterday, I had a better idea, I'll just be like, never mind that. Actually, Jeff was at the pizza parlor instead of the arcade. Okay. Just to like, when I first started writing in college, and I think this is symptomatic too of the urge as a little kid to make a billion different characters, but never draw that first page of the comic book. Because I started to draw the first page of the comic book once, and it was hard. And so, as an undergrad, I spent a lot of time like, all right, I got this great idea for a story. I'll try to write 5 pages a day, and then you write a page, and then be like, oh, I don't like that, and delete half of it, and then change a bit more, and then come back the next day and edit the first 3 sentences again, and maybe write 1 new sentence, and then edit those 4 sentences the next day. And then after doing enough projects where you get all the way to the end and be like, oh, that's not the start anyway, let's just cut that. Why did I spend the first 4 weeks torturing that sentence to death? Yeah. So I write all the way to the end to sort of know what the end is, or at least the general shape of it, and then the next draft is usually on a computer and is a little tighter. I won't edit on like the sentence level because I know a lot of that will change, but if I do, like write a chapter and then a few chapters later I'm like, oh crap, that character, a third character needs to be in there, so this next part makes sense. I'll go back and rewrite that to get it back up to speed.
Okay.
But that second draft, I still feel like no one is allowed to look at that other than me. And then the third draft, I'll usually give to Jenny, my wife, or someone else to make sure it makes sense. And I feel like at that point, I'm starting to go more on the sentence level and still changing. I try to be open to scrapping stuff at every step in the process and making big changes, redoing stuff at every step in the process.
Not being afraid to do that.
So then usually like after, I guess like a 5th or 6th draft, I'm ready to show it to more people and then hopefully start to send it out. I'm not a huge...
Is the shitty draft the first draft, or is that before the first draft?
I call that that counts as a draft to me.
Okay.
It has to feel like I've...
You've got something done.
Yeah.
So on the 5th or 6th draft, then it starts to go out to more people.
Yeah, but I'm not a huge... I don't know, for better or for worse, I'm totally up for hearing what... When I send it out to other people, even other writer friends, I'm not looking for like prescriptive, like you should do this in the third act, or I just want reactions. And I guess I've learned to me, anybody's criticism or advice is a reaction.
Yeah.
Because I do work as an editor too, and I guess I believe in having a really light hand as an editor, a light touch, because it's ultimately to me about, I mean, it's all about my voice, obviously, but as an editor, it's all about like the writer's unique voice, especially with the stakes low. So like editing at this chapbook press, I'm like, oh, we could polish this up and make it into a, like, even if I changed the author's vision and tried to make it more commercial, it's like we're doing print runs of 100 copies. I want each single person who gets that book to get the author's vision, instead of trying to get a watered down vision to slightly more people.
I hear you saying. Yeah. Okay. And so in editing, you'd rather people edit your stuff the way that you edit other people's stuff? I
guess so. And I mean, I guess I know how. It's been really, really helpful to work on the other side of things, to see the way editorial decisions get made and not take that sort of thing personally anymore, but also to have the confidence in my own skills as an editor. And they're definitely, you can't see your own work the way other people can see it.
Yeah.
And so that's what's useful to me, is in the feedback process, is seeing how other people see it.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily know how I want them to see it. So knowing that my intentions were fulfilled or not is useful. But I think a lot of times people want to tell you what they think your intentions should be in a work.
No, I didn't know that. Literally, that was like every day in theater. Like
yeah.
School. Like, it was like,
right.
So what you were doing was it's like, no, just ask the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was this your intention? Not, I don't like the way you portrayed, and it's like, that wasn't. Like,
right. Or maybe you were supposed to not like it because.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Okay. Which brings up a curious thing. We were at family dinner last night, and one of our cousins said, I didn't really like the romance in Black Panther. And to which we all said, what romance? But the thing is that in the creative process with Ryan Coogler and whatnot, like, that clearly, I don't know if that was the intent at all. But did he just tell, I felt like he told the movie what the intent was.
Yeah.
That's why I was so confused. I was like, I don't think I know about that. But do you think it's innate in people to like tell you what your intent is? Like to like,
I think, yeah, I mean, and that's part of reading, and that's part of what's exciting, and that's part of why it feels necessary to have someone react to your work for it to count as work.
Yeah.
Because they finish it by taking it in and reacting to it their way.
Yeah.
And some readers are, I don't know if better is the right word, or more attentive or more generous, or there's different ways to read, obviously.
More generous, I like that.
Yeah.
More generous, that's a little unmarked, it's nice.
But the part that and that's totally fine, but it's weird then when you, the author, are still like you're right there.
It's like you're like smearing, like,
and then it feels like, and definitely with the way social media works more than ever, it can feel like the reader, the listener, the viewer isn't reacting to your work. They're reacting to you. They're at Toussaint Morrison. What the fuck was with that? That last movie? It was terrible. Maybe it just wasn't for you. That's what I.
Oh yeah, like with podcasting, like with some of the discussions that Joetta and I have, it's like I just don't think I don't advertise it anymore because the commentary is like, maybe you hate white people, and it's like I don't think this podcast is for you. It gets supremely it becomes a high challenge when people when they tell you what you're
and that's a whole nother thing of people. There's people on the internet who are going out there looking for people. Like they weren't going to come to your work in any way other than to tell you what you were doing and what was wrong with it, right?
Isn't that crazy that a listener or audience member's intent can be just to solely receive and then spit back, like to receive and then just shoot venom. That to me is the biggest waste of time, ever, forever.
And often with seeing people spend so much time writing shit like that online, I'm like, oh, you need to get a writing practice. You need to get an outlet. Because there's feelings inside of me, like, sometimes looking at Twitter, I'm like, God, there's so many people out there, and they don't, there's stuff I know about the world that if they knew this, they would act better, they would act right. But I can't say it in a way, you definitely can't argue on the internet about it, but ultimately it's like I can't say it in a way, even in a essay or even in a well-worded paragraph. Like I need a novel that's about something else, but it's really about this, and I can say it in 150,000 words. You'll hopefully get the gist of it, but probably
exactly. Not. But what people are doing online is they're writing. They are writing, and it's in for me, it's to my judgment, it's in the lowest form, or I would say the most impulsive and quick form of expression that one could possibly make, which doesn't necessarily lend to the most insightfulness, really poignant things being said. Like it's kind of it's just candy.
And to bring it back around, so much of the arguing that goes on online, you don't actually believe someone's going to read, someone writing a mean comment to your podcast doesn't believe you're going to read it and be like, hey, well, maybe I do hate white people and I've been wrong about white people. Double.
They do it for the sake of doing it.
Right, they do it to say it, but there's really no faith that you're going to read it and change your mind. Mm-hmm. If there was, they would have to say it in a different way. They would have to try to get into your mind what you're thinking, how you're going to react, and how can I say something that's going to interest him, get the reaction I want, but that's just not, it's just yelling.
Yeah, no, I'm seeking to maim somebody. I want to hurt his feelings. I want to get him. And maybe possibly because they felt hurt too.
Yeah.
And so when editing, you try not to tell people what their intent is. Do you avoid people that are going to tell you what your intent is?
Oh, no, not necessarily. I just don't. I guess I wouldn't, at the final levels, I wouldn't want to work with an editor at a press or a journal or something who didn't understand the piece and wanted to change it. And after the first few years of editing, partly just because we built up our profile and get more stuff and can choose better now, I wouldn't, even if there was stuff I really loved about a piece, I wouldn't take it on to publish if I didn't believe in it and wanted it to go forward as is. I guess I just want to try to make things clearer often to potential readers, but I wouldn't mess with such big things at that level. But at a lower level, I'm up for having weird readers because they have extreme reactions, and it's a good. Sometimes it's easier to tell what little things are making, even if it's a subtle thing, someone who normally has big over-the-line reactions, you're going to see it because their reaction's going to be like this, shooting out from that little thing. Whereas someone who's a little more measured in how they react, something like this, they're going to react like this. You might not be able to catch it and figure out.
I hear what you're saying. What do you have right now that you're working on? I was going to get to this question a little earlier, but then I want to ask about your process. But what is the goal now? Like, what are you working on now?
So I'm trying my first novel for younger people.
Yeah.
And I'm in the second draft. I have my shitty first draft.
So nobody can read it now.
Yep. But it's shaping up from this weird first draft, and I'm using this draft to sort of cement the plot because there was, especially towards the end of the shitty first drafts, I have a lot of well, it could end this way or it could end this way. Why don't I write a little of both, sort of? And it's almost like a choose your own adventure, I feel like. So this one I'm trying to cement the arc of the story for real and try to figure out what exact age I'm writing it for.
What's the age right now that it's
So it's about Santa Claus. So part of me, and the main character has to be on the cusp of not believing anymore. That's important to the story. So I tried to figure out what age everybody is when they start questioning that.
Okay.
And so he's in the second grade now.
Okay.
But then a lot of the stuff in it is really scary, and I'm trying to figure out if I should tone down the scariness or if I should, part of I guess I feel like a lot of older kids don't want to necessarily read about a little kid.
Yeah.
So then I'm should I make him older? And then he's just a 16-year-old who still believes in Santa Claus.
Yeah, I don't know. Or 16 believing in Santa.
So I'm toying with that in the tone right now, or maybe it can be scary. Because then I've read some other, I've been doing research and trying to read other kids' stuff, and some of it is scarier, and some kids like that. So I'm just trying to decide the tone, exactly how scary, how goofy, how.
Mm-hmm. So second grade right now.
And then that's the other thing is so my kid's 2.5, and I feel like I'll know better what language-wise too. It's different writing for that. So I'm figuring that stuff out.
Don't let it ruin your work like George Lucas did after he had kids, because then it just all went down.
Yeah. So one of the things I read was Wrinkle in Time. Yeah. And that's a weird book with a lot of crazy concepts, and she says in the intro to it, nobody wanted to publish just because they thought it wasn't for kids. Yeah. And so she didn't take that feedback. She knew her voice, knew what she wanted, and kept pushing it, and it's one of the, best-selling books for kids in the past 50 years. So I think I'm going to try to, readers can be generous to you, and you should be generous to your audience too, I think, and don't assume... Don't talk down. Don't assume they won't understand, or if they don't understand, that they won't try to do the work and figure it out. That's
tough because there's a lot of in film. There's a lot of telling and not a lot of showing, because it's immediate condescension to the audience. You wouldn't have gotten this if I didn't tell you.
Right.
I had to spell it out for you. Batman versus Superman, which some of the I get that, and in doing that in writing, I can imagine that's a entirely different beast to wrestle with, because it's a story. You've written a story. How do you show, how do you not condescend to an audience member?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I don't write novels.
Well, that's a big dictum in writing too. Show, don't tell.
Okay. Do you have a potential title for this one, or do you not want to say it?
No. So far, it's called The Naughty List, which is definitely not going to be the final title. That's more like a Christmas romance.
Well, that's yeah. That's already kind of kids are going to look at that and be like, man,
yeah.
Who knows how they could react. Well, thanks for taking the time out of your day to come down and discuss health insurance and and your next projects.
Of course. It's fun.
It, man.
Good to see you.
Cheers.